Hi and welcome back to Shenanigans. It has been a good while since we last did any historical knitting, and I have found from a book called Fancy and Practical Knitting by the Butterick Publishing Company from 1897, I have found a pattern for a pair of mittens. And I was specifically looking for silk mittens because I wanted to do something nice and detailed, and I wanted to do something with fingers because I'm missing that in my own wardrobe, so why not? And this pattern sounds promising already. Ladies knitted gloves, size 6.5, and I don't know if glove sizes have changed considerably since the 1897s, late 1800s, but I know from all my years in lab that in modern terms, I'm a glove size 7.5. So we are close, And also, I like how this pattern starts out. It says, the materials required for a pair of gloves are 2 skeins of Saxony wool or 2 ounces medium silk and fine steel needles. A glove or mitten of any size knit from any yarn may be made from these directions by changing the number of stitches as required. In the directions, 12 stitches are used for 1 inch of knitting. So there are several things I like about this. This appeals to my just crazy crafting brain because I like methods rather than very strict recipes, and also that they tell us the stitch density, that is 12 stitches per inch for this pattern. Hello, my love. Would you like to join us? So the first thing we are going to do is to find some small 1mm needles, and we are going to knit some swatches. First, I thought I would just unravel these again so that we could reuse the yarn, but then I thought we might do more 1mm needle experiments, so maybe I should keep these so that I have gauge swatches for other projects, since my knitting is my attention is fairly even. So I like the black one the most. That is probably the one that will bring me the most joy, but it will be the most difficult for you, the viewer, to see. But at least you have an example of me testing out the rib knit here. I do wonder if this yarn over will make the rib knit more resistant to stretching, or if it is purely decorative. But I guess we will find out. Okay, let's see if we can count. 5, 6. Honestly, I don't feel that much wiser after having done the swatch test, especially considering that there is such a big difference between these two, but shall we give it a try? Black like you, is it? I won't be able to see what I'm doing. Fair point. Let's see, they ask us to cast on rather loosely 72 stitches. You divide on 3 needles with 24 stitches on each. 11 high. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we will see if I will actually manage to knit on 4 needles rather than 5, which is what I'm used to. First we have to arrange our chaos in such a way that everything is facing the same way and we don't end up with a Möbius loop. Double point needles, if you aren't familiar with them, will be most fiddly as you start. As your pattern grows and your work grows, it will be easier. They will sort of start to self-organize. But first we are to do 4 knit stitches and then 2 purl stitches. And then continue that all the way around the first 4 rounds. Now that we have done our 4 rounds, so this is the 5th, or it's going to be the 5th starting, I'm going to pull my thread out again and we're going to start here because I use the thread to count rounds as well, so we'll know when we have 5 rounds after this thread that it is time to do the pattern yet again. So we are ready to start the patterned row that happens every 5 rounds. And the instructions tells us as follows. For the 5th round, do a yarn over, then slip the first stitch, knit 3 plain knits, and then take that slipped stitch over. And then 2 purl stitches as usual. And here we see a little of that which I talked about at the beginning of this video. If you are unfamiliar with double point needles, I understand people find them quite fiddly, but they do get more manageable when you actually have a little bit of length on your knitting, because that helps give structure to what you're doing. All right, that is 9 little ladder stitches. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, I can count. And the next part of the instruction, we're now going to start shaping the hand, says to knit the hand of the glove. First round, knit plain, making 1 stitch in 2 places on each needle. Let's see if we can make sense of the thumb increases, and we're also going to knit the what they call fancy rib like the sample, quite similar to our cuff, and we are going to use the very adorable black cat stitch marker that Verena sent us for the craft exchange. They are quite a fetching set, don't you think? Yeah. Commence the thumb widenings on one of the needles by purling and knitting a stitch out of 1 stitch, and then purl 1 out of next stitch, knit rest, and 3 more rounds plain except the purl stitches, which must be purled in each row, 1 just above the other, and wherever the widening is made, widen between the purl stitches as in the following row. I'm very curious to hear if other people in the audience are interpreting these instructions differently, and if perhaps we can see how different interpretations compare in terms of the finished product. Again, there is a picture of the finished mitten in this book, which is exciting, and I will leave a link in the description so you can go check it out on archive.org. It's not a pattern you have to pay for or anything, it's just in an old book from ye 1800s. We have done another 3 rounds of plain knit, and we are about to start the fancy rib, which is similar to this one, but a little bit smaller, that the widening of the thumb and rib always come in the same round till the thumb stitches are taken off on a cord. 12, 13, hello my darling, 13 stitches. Chaos notwithstanding, 25 stitches for the thumb. It's a little tight. Well, if I make another pair of these, I might just add one more row of 6 to this pattern, but yeah, so it's thumb starts here. That is also the base of my wrist, and it's all the way up here, so that seems like a pretty good fit to me. We're still going to continue this pattern, but and then the instructions say to cast on 8 stitches in their place, and they're all going to be narrowed off to form the gore. We're just going to do a back loop. 1, 2, 3. Really goes to show how many more rounds you get to play with when your stitches are tiny. Now the question is, should we stop our fancy rib here to give some breathing room before we start the finger, as I understand it, or not? We can do one more twist, I suppose. That way we know that when the gore is finished, so are the fancy rib. So one more, just for good measure. All right, and here at the 10th round, let's do the first 5 stitches in front of the thumb. We are to narrow at the same point and then knit the rest of the round plain. This finishes the gore of the hand. And then we are to knit plain till the space is 3/4 of an inch deep from the thumb hole. That's not too bad actually. We're over 1/2 inch, so there's not just like 2 or 3 rounds. Alright, now for the part that has, shall I say, concerned me the most, the fingers. It seems that we are right here at the little finger, so that seems to fit quite well. And then what we need to do is fold the hand lengthwise even with the left side of the 8 stitches looped on at the thumb hole. Alright, as best I can, I have tried to divide my stitches. It is an uneven number, 44 on one side and 43 on the other, but that is to be addressed presently. I've tried to put the rib knit a little bit towards the center with the thumb all the way inside on the underside so that the fit will be nice, I hope. And let us see what they say. First off, take the stitch on the outside fold of the hand and 9 stitches on each side of it, 19 in all, off on a cord, and leave for the little finger. And then cast on 4 stitches in their place and knit 7 rounds plain. And the rest of the fingers are just variations of the same. And then we are just to knit, this is 2.5 inches, and then start narrowing it off, or however long we need it to be. Alright, here we are at 2.5 inches, and just to double check, although I do think we are pretty spot on, I shall also try it on, because if we are lucky, this might be the first pair of mittens ever that actually fits. Yeah, look at that. Surely we will get the rest of the length from narrowing it off, don't you think so? And if you were to do this, I would recommend making sure there is enough wire so that your fingers don't get stuck. Hi. I know they are tantalizing, but knitting needles are not snacks. I know, it is very disappointing. You know what? I have struggled enough with knitting 2 togethers on tiny needles, so we're just gonna do the good old slip one, knit one, and pull the slip stitch over. Same function, just much easier on the struggle bus. There we go. And let's give ourselves a decent amount of thread to fasten everything with. 1 finger, ready to go. The one thing I will say about this pattern, in addition to knitting the fingers ever so slightly longer, is that there's extra room here in the index finger, but the ring finger and little finger, I suspect too, this one certainly was too tight on my hands. So instead of picking up 4 stitches between the fingers, I picked up 8 on this one. And that is pretty much the only modifications I could think of so far. Just like the length of the fingers tiny bit longer and a little bit more room for the last fingers. Again, you could also just move some stitches from the index finger, which is thicker than necessary, at least on me. And now we finally get to the thumb. take up the stitches left for the thumb and the 8 across the hand, which will be narrowed off for the thumb gore. Narrow the gore off. As for the hand gore, knit the rest plain till 2 inches long and narrow off. So I have one last detail that I've been going back and forth over this, but we do live in a digital age, and one thing that I don't like is having to take my gloves off every time I need to check something on my phone, like when the bus leaves or if someone I'm meeting has sent me a message. So I thought, now with all the fingers done, except for the thumb, we are going to deviate from the pattern just a little bit, just because I'm not going to wear this for historical reenactment so much as I'm going to incorporate this into my daily wardrobe. So I'm going to add a little, like I'm going to add a few rows, and then I'm going to fell a small point of the thumb, and then I'm going to cast it back on so that we get a little slit that we can sort of flip on and off, so that we can use our phone when necessary, even without the rest of our fingers getting cold. Inspired by a friend of mine who recently did something similar. And now all we have to do is weave in the ends, and we have one glove finished. And now we just gotta do it all over again. Now, as someone who has never had a pair of fingered gloves actually fit, I can only say that these were very much worth it for me personally. The pattern is also, I think, not too bad, but I will say that their claim in the beginning about how you could make any size gloves from any type of yarn using these instructions does require a bit of finagling and finagling, because a lot of the instructions are that you are to be 13 inches away from the thumb, or you are to be 8 stitches over here, or and 28 stitches for the index finger and things like that. And that is based on the original 72 stitches. So if you need to scale this pattern up or down, especially significantly, you will need to be going through the instructions and sort of recalculate what those numbers would be when you have a different stitch count to begin with, even if you figure out that you just multiply it by 6 to get this rib. So that is a little caveat to anyone who needs to make amends. It is extra work, as usual. Sorry about that. Maybe we should try to make some sort of table or something to try to make this easier for people. But for now, that is it. I hope you had a fun time, and as I am still very curious about how this pattern would be interpreted by a different person, I have secretly challenged our friend Gillian Eve, who is an amazing knitter herself and spinner and educator and many, many different things. If you haven't watched her work already, I'll leave a link so you can check out her work, and we shall see if she takes the bait and gives us a different interpretation. Maybe, maybe not, like no obligation, but that would be fun to see how someone else interprets this pattern, which was the only pair of gloves that I could find. Everything else that I could find were mittens. But for now, thank you for watching. Thank you, Sud, for being a very diligent supervisor, and thank you to our patrons who continue to make this channel possible, and the community and everything and everyone in it. More stuff to come, but also, excuse me while I almost immediately cast on another pair of these in black. That's all for now. Bye.